The Empire had ruled the stars for 300 years. They had conquered 17 star systems and defeated every species they had ever met. Their warriors were tall, skinned creatures with 4 arms and mouths full of sharp teeth. When they arrived at a new world, civilizations would surrender within days, sometimes within hours. Fear was their greatest weapon, and they had never met a species that did not fear them. Supreme Commander stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. Around him, hundreds of crew members worked at their stations. Ahead of them, through the massive viewing window, a small blue planet hung in the darkness of space. Earth, home of the humans. Had studied the intelligence reports carefully. Humans were a young species. They had only recently left their home planet. They had colonies on their moon, on Mars, and on a few moons of Jupiter. Their technology was primitive compared to their military was small and poorly equipped. By all measurements, they should be an easy conquest. "Open a channel to all human frequencies," commanded. His voice was deep and rough, like stones grinding together. "Channel open, Supreme Commander." Straightened his posture. He had given this speech many times before. Every species heard the same words before they fell. "Humans of Earth and its colonies," he began. "I am Supreme Commander of the Empire. Your worlds now belong to us. You will surrender all military assets. You will submit to rule. Any resistance will be met with total destruction. You have 1 planetary rotation to comply. This is not a negotiation. This is your only warning." He made a cutting gesture with one of his 4 hands, and the transmission ended. Around him, his officers waited in respectful silence. This was the moment enjoyed most. The moment before conquest. Soon, the humans would be sending desperate messages, begging for mercy, offering anything to survive. "Monitor their communications," he ordered. "I want to know when they begin to panic." On Earth, the transmission had interrupted everything. Television programs stopped mid-sentence. Radio stations went silent. Even the internet froze for a moment as the alien face appeared on every screen. In Seoul, at the headquarters of the United Earth Defense Council, Admiral Park was eating his lunch when the transmission came through. He set down his chopsticks and watched the skinned alien deliver his threats. When it was over, he picked up his chopsticks again and continued eating. His second-in-command, Captain, walked into his office. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and short black hair. She had served with Park for 15 years, and she knew him well enough to read his expression. "You saw the transmission?" she asked. "I saw it." Park finished his rice and set the bowl aside. "Finally, something interesting." Raised an eyebrow. "Interesting? They have 200 warships. We have 43. 43 very good warships," Park said. He stood and walked to the window. Below, the city of Seoul continued its daily life. Cars moved through streets. People walked on sidewalks. Nobody was screaming or running in panic. "What are the people saying?" Checked her tablet. "Social media is active." "Show me." What Park saw made him smile. Within 2 hours of the transmission, the internet had done what the internet always did. Someone had taken a screenshot of his face and added a funny caption. Someone else had drawn him with a flower crown. A gaming channel had already released a video titled, "Raiding the Alien Invasion. Is it actually scary?" A grandmother had posted a video saying the aliens looked like her ex-husband. The war declaration had been auto-tuned into a song. It was climbing the music charts. "This," Park said, "is why I love humanity." On the Eternal Dominion waited. 1 hour passed, then 2, then 5. His communications officer kept checking the equipment, certain something must be broken. Reports demanded. "Supreme Commander, we are receiving human transmissions, but—" The officer hesitated. "But what?" "They do not appear to be surrender requests." "Then what are they?" The officer's 4 hands moved nervously. "They appear to be jokes about you, Supreme Commander, and songs. There is also something called a meme war occurring on their networks. Did not understand. A what? I am not certain, Supreme Commander, but your face is being widely distributed with humorous modifications. For the first time in his military career, felt confused. He had conquered the who communicated through crystal vibrations. He had defeated the hive mind, a species that shared one consciousness across billions of bodies. He had burned the ancient temples of the. Every one of them had feared him. They must not understand the threat, he decided. Send the transmission again, make it clearer. The second transmission was even more detailed, described exactly how they would destroy human cities. He listed the weapons they possessed. He showed footage of previous conquests, of cities burning and civilizations falling. The humans responded by creating a parody video. It had 3 million views within an hour. In Seoul, the United Earth Defense Council held an emergency meeting. Military leaders from every nation attended, either in person or through video connection. The alien fleet is real, Admiral Park confirmed. Our satellites have tracked them entering the solar system. They have approximately 200 warships, far more advanced than anything we have. Then we should surrender, said a politician from Europe. We cannot win against such a force. We have not yet tried, said General Song from the Korean Defense Force. How do we know we cannot win? Look at those ships. Look at their technology. They have conquered 17 star systems. Admiral Park raised his hand, and the room fell quiet. He was the most senior military officer present, and his calm demeanor had earned everyone's respect. I have spent 40 years in the military, he said. I have studied every war in human history. Do you know what I have learned? He paused. Humans do not surrender. We complain. We argue. We make jokes about our enemies. And then we fight until we cannot fight anymore. And then we fight some more. But the odds were not good at Thermopylae. The odds were not good at Stalingrad. The odds were not good many times in our history, Park smiled. We are still here. Captain stood beside him. Admiral Park is right. I have been monitoring public reaction worldwide. There is no panic. People are not hiding in shelters. They are making jokes about the aliens and asking when the fight starts. Because they do not understand the danger, the European politician insisted. No, Park said, because they are human, and humans have never been good at being afraid when we are supposed to be afraid. The vote was close, but in the end, the council decided to fight. That night received his first official human response. It came from Admiral Park directly. Supreme Commander, the message read, thank you for your interest in Earth and its colonies. Unfortunately, we are not accepting conquests at this time. Please check back in approximately never. In the meantime, enjoy this collection of songs our people have written about you. Some of them are quite catchy. Best wishes, Admiral Park, United Earth Defense Council. Attached were 47 songs, 12 comedy videos, and something called a best of meme compilation. Stared at the message for a long time. Sir, his second-in-command asked, what are your orders? Felt an emotion he could not name. It was not anger, it was not confusion. It was something new, something uncomfortable. They are mocking us, he said quietly. Yes, Supreme Commander. No one has ever mocked us. No, Supreme Commander. Straightened. Then we will show them why no one mocks the Empire. Prepare the fleet for attack. The war had begun, and for the first time in 300 years, they were fighting an enemy that did not seem to care. The advance fleet moved through the Sol system like a dark cloud. 200 warships in perfect formation, their hulls black against the stars. Each ship was a weapon of destruction, armed with plasma cannons and missile batteries that could crack a moon in half. Supreme Commander watched from the bridge of the Eternal Dominion as his fleet approached the gas giant called Jupiter. Human defense forces would be waiting somewhere ahead, expected them to make their stand near Earth, protecting their home planet with everything they had. It was what every species did. The had fought desperately around their crystal. The had surrounded their queen's chamber with 1 billion bodies. All of them had lost. Long-range sensors are detecting human ships, his tactical officer reported. 42 vessels. They are positioned near Jupiter's 4th moon. Only 42, felt almost disappointed. They are not even hiding near there. They come to meet us in open space. It appears so, Supreme Commander. Leaned forward in his command chair. Bold, foolish but bold. All ships prepare for engagement. The fleet slowed as it approached Jupiter. The massive planet filled the viewing windows, its storms swirling endlessly. Somewhere ahead, the tiny human fleet waited. Then a transmission came through, on an open channel. "Attention fleet, this is Lieutenant Commander of the Earth Defense Force. We have been expecting you." There was a pause. "I have to ask, do you guys want any snacks before we start? We have coffee. It is really good. You should try it before the whole shooting thing begins." Stared at his communication screen. "Is this some kind of trick?" "I do not believe so, Supreme Commander. She seems to be genuinely offering refreshments." "Ignore her. All ships attack formation. We will crush them quickly and move on to Earth." The fleet spread into their standard attack pattern. It was a formation they had used for centuries, a deadly arrangement that allowed maximum firepower while protecting critical vessels. Every captain knew their position. Every gunner knew their target. The machine of war was perfect. The human ships did not form any pattern at all. They scattered like startled birds, moving in seemingly random directions. From the perspective, it looked like chaos, like panic. "They are fleeing," second-in-command said. "Should we pursue?" "Of course, they cannot escape us." But the humans were not fleeing. Squadron leader pulled her fighter in a tight spiral, laughing as 3 ships tried to track her movement. The aliens flew in straight lines, predictable paths that made them easy targets. They expected her to do the same. "Blue Squadron, brake left on my mark," she said into her communicator. "What are you doing?" "I have an idea," his voice came back, excited and slightly crazy. "Your ideas always involve explosions. This one involves a very big explosion." Watched on her scanner as ship dove toward the asteroid belt near Jupiter. He was leading a group of fighters on a chase, twisting between rocks at speeds that should have been impossible. "All pilots, this is Admiral Park." The commander's voice came over the general channel. "I want a clean fight, no unnecessary risks." "Admiral, I am about to do something very unnecessary," replied. "What?" The young pilot had found what he was looking for. A large asteroid, nearly 2 kilometers wide, floating in the path of a cruiser. With precise movements that his instructors had always called reckless and insane, he fired his ship's grappling hooks into the rock. His engine screamed as he pulled with all his power, changing the asteroid's path by just a few degrees. Then he disconnected and flew away, opening a channel to play music, an old Earth song with a heavy beat. The cruiser did not see the asteroid until it was too late. The rock crashed into its hangar bay at tremendous speed. The ship broke in half, explosions rippling through its hull. "That is one for me," announced. "Who is next?" The battle became something they had never experienced. Human pilots did not follow rules. They did not fly in formations. They attacked from every direction, using the asteroids and Jupiter's moons as cover. They communicated constantly, their channels full of jokes and challenges and that strange Earth music. "I got 2, I am winning." "You are not winning, that last one was mine." "It was moving toward me when it exploded. That counts." "Nothing about that counts." On the Eternal Dominion, watched his fleet being torn apart. His tactical officers could not predict human movements. His captains reported confusion. Ships that should have been easy targets somehow disappeared, only to appear behind vessels and open fire. "How are they doing this?" demanded. They have inferior ships, inferior weapons. How are they winning? I do not know, Supreme Commander. Their tactics make no sense. They are not following any pattern we recognize. There must be a pattern, find it. But there was no pattern, that was the point. Captain commanded the destroyer Heart of Soul from her position near Jupiter's moon Europa. She watched the battle data flowing across her screens, tracking every ship, every missile, every explosion. Admiral Park, she said, formation is breaking down. They do not know how to respond to our pilots. Good, press the advantage. All ships moved to Phase 2. Phase 2 was even more chaotic. Human ships that had been hiding behind Jupiter's moons suddenly joined the fight. Small, fast attack craft swarmed cruisers like insects. Missiles streaked across space, some real, some decoys. They could not tell which was which. A destroyer managed to corner Lieutenant Commander's ship, its weapons locked on, ready to fire. "You are trapped, human," the captain transmitted. "Surrender and we may spare your life." Smiled, she had been waiting for this. You know, in human culture we have a saying, never corner a tiger. You are not a tiger. You are a primitive species facing superior force. See, that is where you are wrong. His fingers danced over her controls. We are not primitive, we are creative. She fired her entire missile load, not at the destroyer but at the moon behind it. The missiles struck the surface, throwing up a massive cloud of ice and rock. The debris slammed into the ship, blinding its sensors, cracking its hull. Then flew straight through the chaos, so close to the damaged destroyer that she could see the alien crew through its windows. She waved at them as she passed. "Better luck next time," she said, and was gone. By the end of the battle, they had lost 120 ships. Humans had lost 18. The survivors of the fleet retreated in disorder, their formation completely broken. On the Eternal Dominion sat in silence. His officers were afraid to speak. They had never seen defeat like this. They had never imagined it was possible. "Supreme Commander," his second-in-command finally said, "what are your orders?" Did not answer immediately. He was watching the recordings from the battle, trying to understand what had happened. The human ships darted and weaved like nothing he had ever seen. Their pilots laughed while they fought. They celebrated each kill like children playing a game. "They are not afraid," he said finally. "They should be afraid. We have more ships, more weapons. We have conquered civilizations 1,000 times their age. Why are they not afraid?" No one had an answer. Stood, "Recall the fleet. We need to reconsider our strategy." "Supreme Commander, should we report this to the High Council?" Thought about the pride of the 300 years of victory. They had never retreated, never admitted weakness. "Tell them we encountered unexpected resistance," he said. "Tell them the humans are more dangerous than we anticipated." He paused. "Do not tell them that the humans were laughing at us. Do not tell them that they treated this battle like entertainment." "Yes, Supreme Commander." As the fleet limped back toward the edge of the solar system, human pilots gathered in celebration, was trying to claim credit for 4 kills, was arguing that at least 2 of those were hers. Lieutenant Commander was already planning what snacks to offer the aliens next time. Admiral Park watched his celebrating forces with quiet satisfaction. They had won the first battle, but he knew this was only the beginning. "Captain," he said, "prepare a message for tell them we look forward to their next visit, and attach the video of their ships exploding. Our people have already added music to it." "Which song, Admiral?" Park smiled. "All of them." Supreme Commander stood before the High Council and delivered his report. He spoke of unexpected human tactics. He spoke of their strange unpredictability. He did not speak of the laughter or the music or the memes. Some things were too shameful to admit. The High Council listened in silence. These were the oldest and most powerful leaders who had overseen the conquest of 17 star systems. They had never heard a report like this. "You are telling us," said High Elder, "that 40 human ships defeated 200 of our finest vessels." "The humans fight without honor," said. "They do not follow rules of engagement. They use tricks and deception." "Then adapt, find their weakness. Every species has a weakness." Bowed his head. "I believe I have found one, High Elder. The humans have colonies on other worlds, small settlements far from Earth. They cannot protect all of them. If we attack a colony, they will have to defend it on the ground. And on the ground, our warriors have never been defeated." This was true. Ground forces were legendary. Each warrior trained from childhood in combat. Each one could fight for days without rest. Their strength was 3 times that of most species, and their 4 arms made them deadly in close combat. On the ground, they were unstoppable. "Choose your target," High Elder commanded. "Show these humans what it means to face warriors." Chose Mars Colony 7. The colony was small, only 40,000 people. It was a mining settlement built into the side of a massive canyon, with tunnels extending deep into the Martian rock. It had no real military force, just a security team and whatever weapons the colonists could find. 300,000 warriors descended on Mars in landing craft. They wore heavy armor and carried plasma rifles. They expected the colony to surrender within an hour. Sergeant Major Han watched the landing from her position in the colony's command center. She was 45 years old, a veteran of Earth's last major war, and she had been running the colony's security for 8 years. Around her, her small team of defenders prepared for battle. "How many?" asked her second-in-command, a young man named O. 300,000, maybe more. Laughed nervously. "We have 200 security officers and about 5,000 volunteers. That is 60 to 1. "I have seen worse odds," said. She had not, but it seemed like the right thing to say. The door burst open and a man stormed in. He was in his 60s, with dirt under his fingernails and fury in his eyes. His name was, and he was the colony's chief botanist. For 3 years he had been growing tomatoes in Martian soil, the first successful Earth crop on another planet. Sergeant Major said, "I want a weapon." "Sir, you are a scientist." "I spent 3 years making those tomatoes grow. 3 years of failure and setback and starting over. I am not letting some 4-armed bugs destroy my work. Give me a weapon." Looked at the old botanist. There was something in his eyes she recognized. The same stubborn refusal to accept defeat that she had seen in soldiers. "Have you ever fired a gun?" "I grew up hunting with my grandfather." "Then welcome to the Defense Force." The advance began at dawn. Their commanders expected to walk into the colony and accept surrender. Instead, they found the main entrance blocked and the lights turned off. "They think darkness will stop us," the ground commander laughed. "Our eyes see in darkness better than light. Forward." The first wave of warriors entered the main tunnel. They moved in perfect formation, weapons ready, confident in their superior strength and numbers. The explosion killed 60 of them instantly. Had spent 2 days preparing traps. Every tunnel, every corridor, every room held some surprise. Mines buried under the floor. Grenades rigged to tripwires. One memorable trap involved a heavy mining vehicle set to roll down a slope at high speed. "Fall back to position 2, she ordered over the communicator. "Let them come deeper." They pushed forward despite their losses. They were not used to losing warriors, but they would not be stopped by primitive traps. They adapted, sending scouts ahead, moving more carefully. In a small greenhouse near the colony's center, waited with a group of volunteers. They were farmers and engineers and teachers, ordinary people who had never fought before. But they knew these tunnels better than anyone. They had built them with their own hands. "They are coming," someone whispered. Checked his weapon. It was an old hunting rifle, modified to fire in the thin Martian atmosphere. Not much against armor, but he had made some modifications of his own. The first warrior appeared at the greenhouse entrance. It saw the humans and raised its weapon. Fired first. His bullet was not ordinary. It was filled with a chemical compound he had developed for pest control, harmless to humans, but extremely irritating to most other life forms. The bullet hit the warrior's face and exploded into a cloud of white powder. The screamed and dropped its weapon, all four hands clawing at its burning eyes. Now shouted. The volunteers attacked. They were not skilled fighters, but they were angry and determined. They fought with guns and tools and fists. When one of them fell, another took their place. When they ran out of bullets, they used knives and rocks. They were confused. They had never faced enemies like this, enemies who should have surrendered but refused to stop fighting. Enemies who smiled when they should have been afraid. A young field medic named Shin moved through the battlefield, treating the wounded. When she found a fallen warrior still alive, she did not kill it. Instead, she bandaged its wounds and offered it a small package of food. "Here," she said in broken, learned from translation programs. "Eat, you look hungry." The warrior stared at her. "You, help me, I am your enemy." "You are wounded, I am a medic. It is my job," smiled. "Also, this whole invasion thing is really not going to work out for you. Your commanders should have warned you about humans." "Warned us about what?" "We do not know when to quit." The ground battle continued for 3 days. They took the outer tunnels, but every meter cost them lives. Human defenders appeared from nowhere, attacked, and disappeared into passages they did not know existed. At night, the humans launched raids on camps, stealing supplies and equipment. The ground commander sent increasingly desperate reports to Supreme Commander. The humans would not break. They fought in the darkness. They fought in the narrow tunnels where numbers meant nothing. They fought like demons. And worst of all, they seemed to be enjoying it. On the third day, led a counterattack through the lower tunnels. Her forces had been reduced to less than 3,000, but they had learned the patterns. They knew where to strike. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the ground forces were surrounded, their supply lines cut, their commanders dead or captured. "This is Sergeant Major Hand to all forces," she broadcast on an open channel. "Your situation is hopeless. Surrender now and you will be treated well. We have food and medical care for all who lay down their weapons." There was a long silence. Then, one by one, soldiers began to emerge from their positions, hands raised in surrender. Walked through the battlefield afterward, surveying the damage. His greenhouse was destroyed. 3 years of work gone. But as he looked at the fallen warriors, he felt no satisfaction. "Was it worth it?" asked him. Thought about his tomatoes. He thought about his grandmother's garden back on Earth and the seeds he had brought across space. He thought about all the colonists who had died defending their home. "We will rebuild," he said finally. "We always rebuild, but first I need to check the seed vault. If the seeds survived, I can start again." The seeds had survived. News of Mars Colony 7 spread across the galaxy. A settlement of 40,000 people had defeated an army of 300,000. It was impossible. It was ridiculous. But it had happened. On the Eternal Dominion, Supreme Commander received the reports in silence. His ground forces, his unbeatable, legendary ground forces, had been destroyed by farmers and miners and one very angry botanist. Request instructions, his ground commander's final message read. "We are surrounded, we have lost." Had no instructions to give. For the first time in his life, he had no idea what to do. The humans had beaten them in space. Now they had beaten them on the ground. What was left? "Evacuate the survivors," he ordered finally. "Bring them home." On Mars, the colonists celebrated. Sat alone in the command center, too tired to join the party. Brought her a cup of coffee. "You should rest," the young medic said. Later, looked at the reports from Earth. More ships were coming. The war was not over. How is the prisoner, the one you saved? Smiled, he tried the coffee. I think he liked it. Good, took a sip of her own coffee. Maybe when this is all over, we can teach them to grow tomatoes. The High Council met in emergency session for the first time in 80 years. The great chamber on there was filled with the most powerful leaders of the empire, generals, governors, elders who had overseen centuries of conquest. None of them understood what was happening. High Elder stood at the center of the chamber. He was old, even by standards, and he had seen many wars, but he had never seen anything like this. Let us be clear about our situation, he said. We declared war on a primitive species. We sent 200 ships. We lost 120. We sent 300,000 ground warriors. Fewer than 50,000 returned. And the humans, he paused, struggling with the words. The humans have been making songs about us. The chamber erupted in angry voices. This was not how they fought wars. This was not how any species fought wars. They mock us, shouted General Commander of the Second Fleet. They turn our defeats into entertainment. My warriors tell me the humans were laughing during battle. Laughing. Perhaps we should negotiate, suggested a younger council member. Perhaps we should end this war before we lose more. The do not negotiate with lesser species, slammed his 4 fists on the table. We conquer, we dominate, that is our way. High Elder raised a hand for silence. I have received a message from the humans. They are sending a diplomatic envoy to our diplomats. Now they want to talk. They say they are bringing gifts, cultural exchange materials. Looked troubled. I do not know what this means, but I think we should hear them. We need to understand this enemy if we are to defeat them. 3 days later, a small human ship arrived at the. It was tiny compared to the massive warships that orbited the planet, but it flew past them without fear. Ambassador Lee stepped off the ship with 6 assistants. She was a small woman, 53 years old, with hair and calm eyes. She wore a simple dark suit and carried a bag over her shoulder. The guards surrounded her immediately. Each one was twice her size, armed with weapons that could kill her in an instant. Smiled at them. Thank you for the welcome. Could someone help carry the coffee? It is very heavy. Supreme Commander met the ambassador in his personal chamber. He had expected a warrior, or at least someone who looked dangerous. This small woman with her polite smile was not what he had imagined. Ambassador Lee, he said, you have come to surrender. No, said pleasantly. I have come to help you understand why surrender would be a bad idea for your side. His 4 hands tightened into fists. You think we will surrender to you? I think you will want to once you see what we have brought. May I? She gestured to her bag. Nodded carefully. Opened the bag and pulled out a strange machine. This is called an espresso machine. It makes a drink called coffee. Our species is completely addicted to it. She began preparing the drink. I noticed from captured soldiers that your species also seems to enjoy it. We thought we would share. She handed a small cup to. He smelled it. Something in the aroma made his brain feel more alert, more focused. It is acceptable, he admitted after tasting it. We brought 50 machines as gifts for your council. Also, we brought these. She pulled out a collection of data drives. Entertainment from Earth. Music, games, stories. We thought your people might enjoy them. Why would we want your entertainment? We are at war. Sat down across from him, completely relaxed. Commander, do you know why your empire has won so many wars? Because we are stronger, because we do not fear death. No, shook her head. You have won because every species you fought was afraid of you. They saw your ships and your warriors and they gave up. Fear defeated them before the battle even started. Said nothing, but he knew she was right. Humans are not afraid of you, continued. Do you know why? Because we have been afraid before. We have faced extinction before, not from aliens but from ourselves. Let me show you. She activated one of the data drives. Images appeared on the screen. Human history, wars, disasters, weapons. Watched in growing disbelief. Humans had fought each other constantly for thousands of years. They had created weapons capable of destroying their entire planet, not once, but many times over. They had survived plagues that killed millions. They had survived ice ages and famines and disasters of every kind. "This is your history?" asked. "You did this to yourselves?" "Yes, for thousands of years. We fought over land, over resources, over ideas. We invented new ways to kill each other faster and more efficiently. We came close to extinction at least 3 times," smiled. "And we are still here." "But why? Why would a species do this to itself?" "Because we are competitive, we are stubborn. We cannot accept defeat even when defeat is logical." She leaned forward. "Commander, every war you have fought has been against species who wanted peace. They valued harmony and cooperation. When they saw they could not win, they surrendered. But humans," she laughed softly, "we would rather destroy ourselves than surrender. We have proven this many times." Thought about the battle at Jupiter, the ground war on Mars. The humans had fought as if death meant nothing. They had laughed while their friends died around them. "You are saying we cannot win," he said. "I am saying that even if you win, you will lose. You might destroy our colonies, you might even destroy Earth, but some humans will survive. We always survive, and we will remember, and we will come back. Maybe in 10 years, maybe in 100, but we will come back." She stood and walked to the window, looking out at the species you conquered before. They feared death. We do not fear death. We fear boredom. We fear living small lives without meaning. Your invasion has given us something we love, a challenge, a game, something to fight for." She turned back to, "That is why our people are making songs about you, not because they do not understand the danger, because they do understand and they choose to laugh anyway. That is how humans deal with fear. We make it funny." Sat in silence for a long time. "What do you want?" he finally asked. "I want you to watch our entertainment, read our stories, listen to our music, learn what humans are really like, then decide if you want to continue this war." She left the data drives and the coffee machines and returned to her ship. Within a week, society began to change. The coffee spread first. Something about it was chemically perfect for biology. It made them feel alert and happy in a way their own drinks never had. A black market emerged overnight. Soldiers traded rations for coffee beans. Officers bribed subordinates with espresso machines. Then came the entertainment. Human stories were strange and confusing to audiences. The humans were always fighting each other, betraying each other, falling in love with each other. Their lives were chaotic and messy and completely illogical, but somehow the stories were also impossible to stop watching. A human comedy show about friends living together became hugely popular among young. Human music, loud, rhythmic, emotional, played in secret clubs. Human games, where players pretended to be heroes and villains, spread through schools. General reported to the High Council with grave news. Recruitment is down 30%. Young are more interested in human games than military training. "Then ban the games," High Elder said. "We tried, they simply hide them. One young warrior told me he would rather play human games than conquer worlds." Looked defeated. He said conquering was boring. On the Eternal Dominion, Supreme Commander watched his own officers trading coffee and arguing about human stories. He thought about what Ambassador Lee had said. She had been right. They could not defeat humans with weapons. The humans did not fear weapons. But now, somehow, the humans were defeating them with entertainment. Found himself laughing. It was a strange sound. He had not laughed in years. "Supreme Commander," his aide looked worried. "Are you well?" "I think I am finally understanding humans," said. "They do not fight wars to win. They fight wars to have something interesting to do. And when the war is over, they make songs about it and move on." Is that good? Thought about his own life. 300 years of conquest. victory after victory until victory meant nothing. He had never known a real challenge. He had never felt truly alive. "I do not know if it is good," he said, "but I think it might be true." He sent a message to Admiral Park. It was short and simple. "I would like to try the coffee again. Perhaps we should talk." The war was not over yet, but something had changed. For the first time, they were not thinking about how to destroy humans. They were thinking about how to understand them. 1 year had passed since the declared war on humanity. In that time, everything had changed. The Empire was falling apart. Their subject species, and a dozen others, had watched the humans defeat their conquerors. They had seen something they never thought possible, the losing, and if they could lose to one species, perhaps they could lose to others. Rebellions erupted across 17 star systems. They demanded independence for their crystal worlds. The hive mind disconnected from control networks. The ancient, who had surrendered their weapons centuries ago, began building new ones. The empire that had ruled through fear was learning what happened when the fear disappeared. Supreme Commander stood in the Great Hall of the United Earth Council in Seoul. He was surrounded by human guards, but he was not a prisoner. He was a petitioner. Admiral Park sat at the head of the council table. Beside him were Captain, now promoted to Admiral herself, and representatives from every human colony. They watched the commander with expressions that were neither hostile nor friendly. "Supreme Commander," Park said, "you requested this meeting. What does the Empire want?" Found the words difficult. His entire life he had never asked anyone for anything. He had taken what he wanted. He had commanded and been obeyed. This was something new. "We request," he paused, "assistance." Silence filled the room. 1 year ago you declared total war on us," Park said. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "You expected us to surrender." "Yes." "You thought we would be easy prey." "Yes." "You killed 37,000 of our people in the ground invasion of Mars." Lowered his head, "Yes." Park stood and walked toward the commander. He was much shorter than, but somehow he did not seem small. "Why should we help you?" Had asked himself this question many times. He had prepared speeches about strategic alliances and mutual benefit. But standing here, in front of this human who had defeated him in every way, he found that he could not lie. "Because I was wrong," he said. "I thought conquest was strength. I thought fear was power. I have learned that I understood nothing." He looked at Park directly. "Your ambassador showed me your history, your wars, your weapons. By every measure you should have destroyed yourselves, but you did not. You found ways to survive, to cooperate, to grow." He paused. "They have only known one way, conquer or be conquered. We do not know how to do anything else." "And you want us to teach you?" "Yes." Park studied the alien commander for a long moment. Then, slowly, he smiled. It was the same smile that had haunted soldiers in their nightmares, the smile of a species that found war amusing. "Welcome to the neighborhood," Park said. "We are going to need you to fill out some paperwork. Also, your people should try kimchi, trust me." The treaty was signed 3 days later. It was not a surrender and it was not an alliance. It was something new, a partnership between species that had tried to destroy each other. The terms were simple. They would release all subject species from their control. They would share their technology with humanity. In exchange, humans would help them rebuild their society into something that did not depend on conquest. Not everyone was happy with the decision. "They killed our people," said a representative from Mars Colony 7. "They destroyed our homes, and now we are supposed to help them." Sergeant Major Han stood to speak. She had been invited to the council as a hero of the ground war, but she did not feel like a hero. She felt tired. "I fought them on Mars," she said. "I watched friends die. I wanted to hate them." She paused. "But I also saw their prisoners after the battle. They were confused, afraid. They did not understand why we kept fighting. They did not understand why we helped them after they surrendered." She looked at the angry representative. They were taught that conquest is everything. They do not know any other way. If we leave them alone, they will not change. They will find new enemies to fight. But if we help them... She trailed off. If we help them, what? The representative demanded. Then maybe they can become something different, something better. Sat down. Is that not what humans do? We change, we adapt, we make enemies into friends. The vote passed narrowly. Humanity would help the... 5 years later, the galaxy was unrecognizable. The Empire no longer existed. In its place was a loose federation of independent species, connected by trade and culture rather than force. Human merchants traveled to crystal worlds selling coffee and music. Tourists visited Earth to see the birthplace of the species that had defeated them. Supreme Commander had retired from military service. He spent his days writing a memoir about his experiences. The book was called How I Lost a War and Found Coffee. It became a bestseller in 14 star systems. Human culture spread everywhere. Music from Earth played in alien clubs. Human food became fashionable among species who had never heard of spices before. Something called memes appeared on alien networks, though most species did not quite understand what they were. And everywhere, the story of the human war was told and retold. How a young species had faced an ancient empire and refused to be afraid. How they had won not through strength, but through stubbornness and humor. How they had conquered their enemies with coffee and entertainment. In Seoul, now the capital of the United Earth Confederation, Admiral Park sat in a small with his old friends. He had retired too, though he still consulted for the Defense Council. His hair was now, and his hands were not as steady as they once were, but his smile was the same. Sat across from him, still sharp-eyed and quick-witted. Beside her were Han and Shin, the medic who had befriended a prisoner on Mars. "Did you see the news?" asked. "Another species made contact yesterday, though they are sending ships to Earth." Park sipped his coffee. "Are they friendly?" "Hard to say. Their first message was a list of demands. They want us to acknowledge their superiority and submit to their authority." Everyone at the table laughed. "So the usual," Park said. "How many ships do they have?" "About 300, very advanced according to our scans. And let me guess, they have never lost a war. They say they have conquered half a galaxy." Park set down his coffee cup. He looked at his friends, these people who had fought beside him in the darkest days of the war. They were older now, but they were not afraid. They had never been afraid. "Think they will try to invade?" asked. "They always do." "And they never learn," added. Park smiled. Outside the window, the city of Seoul continued its busy life. Humans walked alongside and sharing the same streets, the same air, the same future. It was a future no one had imagined 5 years ago. "Send a message to the," Park said finally. "Welcome them to our region of space. Offer them coffee and music and friendship. And if they refuse," he shrugged, "then we will show them what we showed the..." "Which is?" "That the most dangerous species in the galaxy is not the one with the biggest weapons. It is the one that treats war like a game and turns its enemies into fans." Later that day, Admiral sent the message to the fleet. It was polite and welcoming and included an attachment of human music. The commander opened the attachment and heard something strange. It was the song about the invasion, the one that had reached number 3 on the charts all those years ago. It had been remixed and updated, with new verses added for each species that had joined the human alliance. There was a verse for the proud who had learned to laugh. And at the end, there was a new verse waiting to be written. The commander listened to the song 3 times. Then she called her advisors and asked a question no had ever asked before. "What exactly are humans?" Her advisors did not have a good answer. But somewhere in Seoul, Park was finishing his coffee and preparing for another interesting day. Some species conquered through force. some through fear. Humans conquered through the simple, wonderful truth that they found the whole universe amusing. And the universe, slowly but surely, was beginning to laugh along.